another year down. I wish I had some kind of grand unifying summation to offer, but frankly I'm just glad most of us are still here. It was a tough year. Lost a lot of sleep, lost a lot of emotional energy, lost the ability to say my home country was on the right side of history, and I lost my father. And trying to find some meaning in all that has proven rather more difficult than movies, books, and legends about living through historical turning points would have led one to believe it is. Still, we endure, and amid all that, it was a fascinating and overall pretty cool year at the movies, so here's the obligatory top 10 for you. As ever, the usual disclaimer, other than what's in the actual list and what's in first place, I really don't put a lot of stock or thought into the number placement, so neither should you. Also, yeah, you'll probably see other top 10 lists from me in different contexts floating around that have a different order or a different ranking or even some different titles, and yeah, that happens. Sometimes you see another movie in between making two lists, sometimes the lists are part of a ranked vote and you want to give something deserving an extra boost, sometimes you just change your fucking mind. Again, as far as I'm concerned, year-end lists of any kind should have the primary purpose of re-alerting the audience to good stuff they probably need to catch up on, and everything else is gravy, frankly, but that's just me. Anyway, here's the top 10, I hope you like it. I'm hardly optimistic enough to say here's to a great new year, but here's hoping at some point I'll at least be able to once again broadcast to you from a, let's say, global scenario that deserves that kind of optimism. Oh, and happy holidays, which when I was growing up was something you said to jointly acknowledge Christmas and New Year's rather than some dumb culture war touchstone to be obsessed over by the stupid and/or disingenuous. Ahem. Honorable mention, Loving Vincent. A lot of honorable mentions this year, but this one probably best typifies the whole reason to have them. Loving Vincent is a rotoscoped animated feature about Vincent van Gogh where the visuals mimic his style and some of his actual paintings and were rendered entirely in oil paint. Every single frame of it, making this the first ever fully painted motion picture. I can't say the Who Killed Van Gogh mystery story it's framed around is anything to write home about, but it's also hardly the point. This is likely a once-in-a-lifetime technical filmmaking achievement that you have to see to believe. Honorable mention, Wonder Woman. To put it bluntly, this movie and Jordan Peele's Get Out were jointly the American movies of 2017. They were both moments that captured the zeitgeist in ways that went deeper and further than their objective quality, and the entire stretch of Wonder Woman from no man's land to liberating the little village is going to stand up as one of the all-time iconic superhero moments in the history of the genre, and the rest of it was overall pretty fun too, especially all that business with Robin Wright on Themyscira. I dug it. There were just, 10 or 12 movies I dug slightly more than this, and yeah, the shitty final act has a lot to do with why. Still, respect must be paid. Honorable mention, Thor Ragnarok. This was so close to being number 10 you have no idea, but in the end I liked the final 10 a bit more. Still, even if it wasn't the most groundbreaking film in its genre to hit this year, Thor Ragnarok was pretty great, and even though it made a ton of money and got great reviews, still feels kind of underappreciated, like everyone was so busy celebrating how much better the whole Thor franchise works with humor and weirdness layered in, that we missed how striking it is for a major Hollywood movie to make, hey, maybe a society built on misdeeds can't be saved from itself, and maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, its central theme. 2017 was the year for the explicitly political blockbusters, and this might actually have been the most subversive of the bunch. Honorable mention, the intro to Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. The rest of this movie doesn't really work, and a good opening can't salvage a whole piece, but nonetheless, the first 4.5 minutes of Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is probably my favorite solid stretch of filmmaking this entire year, and the one I've rewatched the most by a big margin. Moving, funny, poignant, visually stunning, and endlessly imaginative vision of the future as it should be in a spirit of advancement, evolution, and idealism that could get us there, a beacon of hope in a moment in time when very few are available, and possibly the best 4 minutes of anything Luc Besson has ever put on screen. I wish the rest of the film were even 1/1000th as good, but then again, what purer expression is there of science fiction than finding inspiring visions of the future in the margins of otherwise completely schlocky movies? But, okay, now on to the actual top 10. Number 10, The Post. Spielberg, Hanks, and Streep team up to make it all look easy. The culture basically demanded a movie not simply about the need for crusading activist journalism, but about the ability and indeed necessity of crusading activist journalism to grow and emerge even from within the so-called establishment, not only in knee-jerk opposition to it. The Post may or may not be the most detailed explanation of what the Pentagon Papers were and how that whole scenario went down, but it's an electric reminder of what they meant, smuggled within a deceptively light-feeling character drama that's all about whether political journalism can exist both within and apart from the political class, and a nuanced portrait of a woman rising late in life to ambition she never considered she had. Number 9, Mother. This is a movie where dangerous and experience got thrown around more often than good, and yeah, a big part of why Mother felt so special is that it was refreshing to see a major director and actors with real skin in the game get together and make something that felt genuinely dangerous and transgressive, like you were watching something that maybe shouldn't have been allowed to exist, made by people who were capable of something truly wicked, but it's also a great movie, grandly conceived, intimately realized, and masterfully using what might be the most obvious metaphor-symbolism narrative possible for its subject to dig into the details of the creator-destroyer-participant-spectator dynamic that its characters represent. Yes, it's a movie that wants to beat your psyche to a bloody pulp and leave lasting emotional wounds, but not without purpose. And it sure was nice to be reminded of why Hollywood fell in love with Jennifer Lawrence in the first place after watching her sleepwalk through those last two X-Men movies and the repeated miscasting in David O. Russell's slow-motion career downturn. Number 8. Phantom Thread. Eventually we'll all have seen Phantom Thread, and it'll be possible to talk about it without worrying about spoilers. I look forward to that, but what's really extraordinary is that the filmmaking, production, screenplay, and performances on display are all so meticulous and top tier that it's unquestionably one of the most enthralling and engrossing features of the year, even before it gets interesting. Add to that a once-in-a-lifetime, supposedly final performance by Daniel Day-Lewis, and you've got a movie that you absolutely have to see. I just can't tell you why. Number 7. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Would a superhero space comedy about reconciling imperfect but nonetheless impactful father figures have placed so high for me in another year? I'd like to think so, but yeah, you can't really not acknowledge something when it's a factor. Beyond that, though, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is a shockingly good sequel, as the first film was an unknown quantity. Everything that worked before still works. Some things like Nebula and this cycle's red herring villains work better, and the insightful willingness to not only turn the whole narrative inward as a stinging critique of the very man-boy hero archetype that Star-Lord typifies, but expand outward into a deconstruction of toxic masculinity and literally the male ego is, okay, look, for good or ill, making movies at this scale out of whatever parts you can lease from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe or not at all is as much a fact of the medium today as shooting in black and white was a century ago. And what James Gunn is demonstrating with the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise is not only how to survive as an artist in these circumstances, but how one can indeed thrive there, and that is no small feat. Number 6. Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. To paraphrase my own original review, it's not often that you see a movie where the term radical feminist is deployed as an unironic compliment, or that name drops Margaret Sanger the way other historical biopics might toss out, you know, the Elvis Presley. The official Wonder Woman movie became the surprise mega success of the summer, in part by faithfully embracing the progressive, still groundbreaking spirit of the source material, and this biopic of her creators offered an affirming, quietly powerful rendering of the remarkable lives where that spirit came from. A revolutionary movie about revolutionary people that takes the decidedly subversive route of presenting itself as anything but revolutionary, framing a complete upending of conventional mores for sexuality, gender, and relationships as utterly normal and in need of defense only from everyone else's hang-ups. Thanks to the earnest direction, committed performances, and a subtle, sincere screenplay, it all came together. Someday this film will be a generational touchstone for people who felt they never saw their stories or their truth on screen, but for now it's a spectacular film that deserved more attention than it got. Number 5. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. It took 3 tries, but Disney's gambit to not only add Star Wars to its IP collection, but keep the saga going in a fresh post-Jedi continuation, finally proved that it could lead to more than the nostalgia-fueled pleasantries of The Force Awakens or the offbeat digression of Rogue One. The Last Jedi is the first Star Wars feature since Empire to feel like a genuinely great, classic-in-the-making, game-changer of a film, in addition to being a great continuation of the Star Wars mythos, and the fact that fans have found so much to passionately argue about in the details of that is proof not only of its artistic success, but just how brave it was for Rian Johnson to take the risks he took. It's a bold film that not only dared to be of the moment and political within the modern universal pop mythos, but to actively interrogate, challenge, and recontextualize the very foundations of that mythos. And as a result, Star Wars feels like it has more potential for growth, change, and genuine cultural endurance than it has at any point since the prequels even. Number 4. The Shape of Water. Once more, paraphrasing my own review, if you ever wanted the definition of a truly indispensable filmmaker, look no further than Guillermo del Toro, an auteur who's carved out and so profoundly commands a unique space all his own in the world of cinema that his voice and touch can be the entire difference between a must-see and something entirely basic. It feels like he's never more in his true element than when he's taking otherwise basic-sounding genre movie setups and slathering them in his own one-of-a-kind aesthetic and pure talent until they've transformed into something like a work of art. And The Shape of Water is both a work of art and a grand achievement in good old-fashioned monster flicks. And it wasn't even the best monster movie this year. Number 3. Colossal. Now here's a premise that could easily have been a perfectly good comedy of any other sort of movie on its own. Anne Hathaway is a terminal fuck-up of an alcoholic who, when she gets drunk in a certain part of town at a certain time of night, causes a giant Japanese-style kaiju monster to materialize and rampage through downtown Seoul, South Korea, mimicking her exact movements. I mean, that's about as high concept as you can get, and Colossal could have stopped right there, but instead it knocks this all out in Act 1 and spins off into an absurd yet dramatically dead-serious exploration of substance abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, depression, addiction, self-hatred, and also implausibly rising above all that. It's a movie that's as funny as it is frightening and is delightfully compulsively watchable and sometimes hard to take, yet despite the emotional endurance it demands from some audiences, in many ways it may be the most uplifting and life-affirming film of the year, and this year really needed more of that. Number 2. Get Out. Get Out is the movie of 2017, bar none. Is it objectively the best film of the year? Well, it's definitely a contender, however you slice it. But regardless, like I said up front about this and Wonder Woman, they were the films that caught the pop culture zeitgeist of 2017, the fever dream of sights and sound history will look back on in order to say this is what was happening in the collective consciousness at this moment in time. But even when you step back from that, Get Out is just fabulous filmmaking from top to bottom, evidencing straight off that Jordan Peele is not simply a good filmmaker who brings a vital alternative perspective to the field, but a great filmmaker, period, who brings a vital new perspective as the ultimate bonus. Get Out is essentially a perfect genre film. It delivers on its premise, it's genuinely scary, its themes and commentary are incisive and on point without overwhelming its mechanics as a piece of entertainment, and it effectively established Peele as an inheritor to the likes of George Romero and Rod Serling. Anything else worth digging into about Get Out has already been said and dug into by people more qualified to do so than me, but it can't be overstated just how much better than even great this film turned out to be. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Number 1. Logan Lucky. Look, I'm as surprised as you are, guys. Let's be clear about this. Get Out is the movie of 2017, like I said, and it's all but certainly the better of these two films in my top 2 as a gangbusters debut. But when it comes to it, yeah, Logan Lucky was my favorite movie this year, and I also happen to think it's a worthy contender for the Best Of prize if you like. Now, any of you who watch the other content or follow me on social media are well aware that I am the farthest thing alive from an easy lay when it comes to movies about the supposedly benighted nobility of the rural working class, but Logan Lucky is the real deal, buoyed by a fantastic cast, and you know to expect from Soderbergh, of course, who really doesn't seem to have missed a beat in his brief absence from film directing, and a screenplay that walks the fine line between earnest sensitivity and frankness about the state of the world its characters find themselves in. These feel like real people living real lives, and yet also atavistic representations of a distinctly American place and time that is often either caricatured or idealized, but seldom presented as authentic and human. And as much as I was inclined to enjoy the simple absurdity of what amounts to Ocean's 11 but for blue-collar schmoes from NASCAR country, I was also moved by the drama and impressed with the ease through which Soderbergh works through the repeating joke of these characters who don't even consider themselves especially intelligent, demonstrating cleverness and genuine human worth that is sorely lacking from other films that have attempted to explore this moment and this slice of American dream. Of course, it's a Soderbergh movie with a big star cast, so it's likely to be remembered for the memorable character turns by Channing Tatum in the lead, Adam Driver as the one-armed Iraq war vet brother, and Daniel Craig stealing the show as Joe Bang in an incredibly memorable role that feels both over-the-top and subtle, but what'll stick with me is the atmosphere and the sense of place, and the idea that I can be marveling at the cleverness with which they use their knowledge of the world around them to pull off their heist, to laughing at the slapstick and situational comedy that arises as things don't go as planned, and also be moved to nearly breaking by a scene that takes place during a child beauty pageant of all things. Logan Lucky is so far outside the realm of what would typically be considered a Bob movie, or what I would even think of as something I'd end up falling in love with, and I genuinely do think this was my favorite film of the year, and very likely one of the best, and if you missed it in theaters, which according to the box office you almost certainly did, it is time to catch up on it. I do not think you'll be sorry. Hey gang, here's a question that keeps coming up. If your handle is MovieBob, where are your movie reviews? Well, my old reviews are in a lot of places. You'll find many of them on my YouTube channel, but you'll find the brand new ones on Geek.com, an awesome site that's also your one-stop news source for science, TV, gaming, technology, nerd culture, the works. You can find all my reviews directly by going to geek.com/author/bchipman, because that's my real name, and you can get regular updates on all my reviews and all of Geek.com's other great content by signing up for their kick-ass newsletter at subscribe.geek.com. And don't forget to also subscribe to the Geek.com YouTube channel, where you'll find the videos that accompany my reviews and tons of other great content too. Remember, that's Geek.com, the Geek.com newsletter, and Geek.com on YouTube. Make sure you don't miss out on all the latest MovieBob reviews. You can also check out my own new website, MovieBob Central, where you'll find my blog, links to all my work, and shop for my books, ebooks, and future MovieBob products. And please remember to like these videos, share them with all of your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching another MovieBob production.